going on a women's retreat for veterans, women veterans.
Oh, very nice.
So, yes. I've never had a Chick-fil-A wrap. Thank you for lunch.
They're very good.
So, and they're wrapped so nicely. Yes.
Do I need to request a motion for the adoption of minutes?
Yes.
Oh, you said Dawn.
Yes.
I thought you said Donna. I was like, and then he asked the question, and it was like, that's not me.
I'm sorry if I didn't put that on there.
It's okay.
But yes, we do need a motion.
Yeah, get all the food off your face.
Okay, I call to order this meeting of the TIRZ number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the Power Board Center meetings on this June 7th, 2023. Mr. Barber, could you please lead us in invocation?
Yes, sir. Everybody bow your head, please. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this beautiful day here in Terrell, Texas. I want to ask you to be with us all on this board today, that we make the right decisions and do what's best for the citizens of Terrell. Please keep us all safe and be with our first responders. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If we could please stand, do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, moving over to the next step, which is the adoption of minutes. I assume everyone had the opportunity to take a glance over them. Are there any questions or concerns? If not, can I get a motion
I
to
move
approve?
to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion carries. Moving forward. Discuss and consider approval of the minutes from the tax increment reinvestment zone number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Is that the same thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I did.
New business. Mike Sims.
Uh-oh, that's me.
Something about a financial report?
Absolutely. So you should have a packet in front of you, and I'm going to go over to page 5 of that packet. This is your update as of April 30, 2023, and this is going to look very boring, so pardon me for that. The Power Center receives its county tax dollars and its city tax dollars after we get all of our money in, and then we transfer it over to the Power Center. So as you can see, as of the end of April, we're working through this process. We've been using Hal Jones, our accountant here locally, in Mr. Smith's office. He's the former county auditor, and he was the county auditor when we started the tax and refinance zone. He had a injury. Am I supposed to be using this, Dawn? Sorry. Okay. So he is going to retire, and now we're transitioning his workload over to Dawn in order to make all of those same calculations. So that's a little bit of a lengthy period. So we normally would have had our transfers into the Power Center done during the month of April. I think we'll have that done during the month of June, and bring you a report on that later on. We've contacted our private sector folks. They're, Buc-ee's, Crossroads, Terrell Market Center, they're waiting on checks from us, but they can just wait, because we're going to make sure we get the math right first, right? So all of those tax collections, we expect them to come in right at the budgeted numbers. So I think when you see it, they'll be right close to 516 city, be right close to 346 county. And then you can see those calculations down there from the estimates from last year's budget process about how much we'll actually be paying out. And we expect to be able to accomplish that. We have not initiated the engineering project or the drainage landscape project that was contemplated there. That's associated with Pond 2 and with the park going in on Pond 2 over there, the Crossroads Pond 2. And we will keep working on that. We've got a little bit of review being done by our park board of what part of that project looks like. So we'll be on hold just a little bit more for that. But we do have a draft contract from Freeze and Nichols related to the Crossroads Park. By way of background, Crossroads Park is the one where the developer paid some impact fees, and the grant application was successful with Texas Parks and Wildlife. So we've got $750,000 from the developer, $750,000 from Texas Parks and Wildlife. part of that project necessitates the construction of a little bit of a roadway section that comes in off of American Way. And in order to get that done correctly, that's what that little engineering effort was all about. We discussed that, a year ago, so I'm just trying to refresh your memory on it. So that's Power Center.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
The parentheses mean it's negative? It hasn't come in yet?
Right, absolutely, right, yeah. So the variance there is that we sure would like the 516 to come in. It's not that they haven't paid their taxes, we just have to process the money internally before we put it into this fund.
And at the end of it, when it says we will have year-to-date an excess, which is good, of 130,000.
Right, so that dollar amount right there is showing you that when we set up the budget for this year, we thought we would collect $863,000, and we thought we would spend $993,000. So the parenthetical there is a deficit of 130. So the budget planning for the year was to say, hey, we've collected several hundred thousand in fund balance. Let's go ahead and get that out there as public improvements and spend that balance down just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the budget planning that happened last year. And as of right now, and you can kind of think about it like this, see how there's two projects, I would call them, engineering and drainage landscape. Let's say I took that $200,000 out, okay? If I took that $200,000 out, the only encumbrances of the power center would be the admin costs. We have a company named P3 that does some work for us to make sure that we're filing our reports correctly with the comptroller. Then we've got reimbursed Market Center, reimbursed Buc-ee's, reimbursed Crossroads. Well, those are all contracts that were signed 5 or 6 years ago, right? So we know that when that money comes in, we're obligated to send that money right back out. So you basically have $770,000 worth of just contractual expenses in the power center each year. We've been good about not spending any money out of the power center whatsoever other than those exact contractual expenditures, and that's why over several years we've been able to amass that little bit of fund balance right there. So this was the first year we said, well, let's spend down the fund balance just a little bit on the drainage project and on the engineering project. But to date, we have not incurred those expenses yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So a similar story on TIRZ number 1. TIRZ number 1, we expect that our tax collections from the county will be right around $480,000, and that the tax collections for the city of Terrell will be right at $1.7 million. Dawn is doing the calculations that Hal Jones used to do for us that would ensure us that we've quality controlled those numbers before we make the transfer into the TIRZ. So that's what we're doing right now. And again, same story. We've told the developers they're just going to have to hold their horses and wait just a little bit. This time you can see those shown as TIF reimbursed Senecola, TIF reimbursed Baylor, TIF reimbursed Terrell Market Center, TIF reimbursed Buc-ee's, TIF reimbursed Crossroads. Those are the line items from the budget that are all contractual, right? Those are the ones that date back to the original agreements in the Buc-ee's and Crossroads agreements that we incurred a long time ago. And so when we collect those monies, for example, the reimbursement for Crossroads, $833,000, again, just by way of history lesson, that economic development deal says, hey, we're going to take the property taxes, city and county, from the Crossroads area, Film Alley, Academy, all that sort of good stuff. We're going to collect them, and we're going to reimburse them up to a capped dollar amount. We also include the EDC sales tax as part of that, and that capped dollar amount is $20 million. Well, they spent $16.5 million on roads, water, sewer, infrastructure, all of that. They borrowed the necessary money for it, so they financed it. So they said, hey, we'd like a finance cost for consideration there. And we said, well, okay, but not much. And so the negotiations ended up being that we would apply an interest rate to that, but that we would cap the total payments at $20 million. So we've got a little schedule that whenever we make this year's payments, we'll bring forward a nice little report for you that shows, okay, here's Crossroads, and here's how close we're getting to our $20 million cap, and here's how many more years that it will take to finish paying that off. Off the top of my head, I'm going to take, it's our math will probably show it's about 8 more years in order to pay all of that off. And once we get it paid off, of course, all of that tax increment refinance zone money comes into the TIRZ, and you have more discretionary ability to make decisions about how to spend that, okay? So what else have we budgeted in here? We've got some consultant fees that we're doing to make sure that some of our engineering projects are going well. We've got a library assessment that we budgeted money for that we haven't initiated yet and started spending money on. You can see down here at the bottom, there's the downtown project office. So that's a transfer that goes over to the general fund so that we can support our Rayland Smith's activities. Then you've got our town square master plan. We've incurred some expenses there as we continue to hone in on that. That's the preliminary planning of the roads, the water, the sewer, the drainage, all around the town square location. The Pena Partnership, that's a development deal that was signed about 1.5 years ago related to the Anderson Building and the Griffith Building. The Anderson Building being the 4-story building over here. That's the largest building downtown. That's where Hard Bodies is. And then the Griffith Building is the old pawn shop that is under renovation now. They just painted it white, and it's next to the open piece of land that we have. So again, just kind of refresher for everybody. The idea with the Griffith Building is that they're renovating that for a restaurant. We're working on an agreement with them so that they'll take the vacant lot next to it, and they'll be, and that's owned by the city of Terrell. They'll be using that for an outdoor dining courtyard. And so we met with the restaurant operator last week. We think that that's going along, doing very well to get that partnership done. But there's just a variety of steps to kind of finish all of that out. So when you hear Pena Partnership, Louis and Cynthia Pena are the owners of 3 buildings downtown, and they have a development deal on on those 2 buildings, and we're just working through that process. The Anderson Building is a little bit more long-term. They did close down Hard Bodies so that they could complete the renovation over there. That was their business decision to close that. And they also own the Lyric Building. The Lyric Building is the one where there's the mural of the guys working out and all that sort of good stuff. They continue to believe that they will resurrect a new gym in that building soon, but they're not ready to make an announcement yet on who's going to be in there and how they're going to create a new downtown gym in that location. But that's the battle plan that they've been working on. And they did just achieve last week their certificate of occupancy on the Lyric Building, which gives them the green light to go ahead and move forward in the rest of that process. So that's going along well, but it is a step-by-step process. BFTS pre-construction, so we continue to make some small payments to our architect there. We're trying to get that ready to go. We gave a little report to City Council here recently, and basically the idea is what we're aiming for, and this is just the way life goes, right? We purchased the building. We said, okay, great, this is a good price. We're going to buy the building. And then we initiated the architectural work on it. The first slice at that architectural work said, hey, you know what? We're probably going to be able to renovate this thing. So let's get it done as a renovation. As we got more and more into it, it became more and more apparent that we were not going to be renovating that building. Renovation on that Chapman building, basically the conclusion was, by renovate, we mean completely demolish it and build a new skeleton of metal on the inside and then clad it and move on and have a new building there. So that's that drawing that you've seen from time to time. So our observation was this is now much more than a fairly inexpensive retrofit of an existing building. This is now a major project. So what we're trying to do is finish the architectural work on it and then proceed to go out and do some fundraising on it. So the BFTS Museum guys are still excited about doing it. They're still excited about moving downtown. I still 100% endorse the idea that we need to take a tourist attraction and put it downtown in order to get more pedestrian traffic downtown, more shopping downtown, more every activity downtown. However, it's not going to be an inexpensive relocate the BFTS Museum. They said, hey, could you take a pause and let us work on our fundraising on the interior of the building? And at that same time, we said, hey, we want to take a pause and make sure that we have a better financing strategy for this thing. So we've applied for some federal grants associated with that building to try to get big money onto the BFTS Museum downtown. And now we're also developing a fundraising strategy of our own, because our thought initially was, well, we'll let the BFTS Museum fundraise for the inside of it, and we'll take care of building the building. Well, now that it's building a building instead of renovating a building, the strategy really means that we probably need to do our own work as a city, doing some fundraising for the actual construction of that. We don't think that's fundraising internal to the city of Terrell, right? Sometimes you have a fundraising strategy where you say, I'm going to pass the hat in my local neighborhoods, right? You're not going to pass the hat in the city of Terrell and raise enough money for that project. That's a project of national significance, and what we're doing right now is we're working through the process of trying to figure out, okay, if we want to fundraise in Great Britain and we want to fundraise in the United States for a nationally recognized museum location, who's that donor list and who do we need to be working with to try to make that happen? So we've backed up a half step. We said, okay, better do the project right, keep the dream alive, get a really good project built so that we have a Class A tourist attraction in downtown, but we want to take a different fundraising strategy at it. So that's a longer explanation than maybe you needed, but that's my line item, BFTS pre-construction. We're going to continue on architectural work. Yes, ma'am.
So the building that it was going to be is in bad condition.
Yeah, we'd be happy to walk you, yeah, right, yeah.
Well, the architects are good at this, so I'm just asking, can they at least save the brick?
So that's the one that has the, I guess I just call it a false front on it. So it's got the, it's not marble, it's a fake kind of a granite on it, right? Yeah, so it's the black granite one. So that black granite stuff, one of the things that we've identified is that when they took an old brick facade and they drilled holes in it to attach the granite, they did it in a way where water infiltration came down in between the two layers. And as the architect studied it, his conclusion was, do not try to save that. Do not take off the granite and remove all these metals and then think you're going to have a viable wall. That's not going to work, and you're going to collapse that wall in that process. And so that being the conclusion, we said, okay, you just got to take a step backwards. Now, can you save some of the brick and use it for decorative purposes? Aha, that's a different question, right? So we think as we demolish it, we'll have a pile of brick over here, which will be rubble, okay? And then we'll have some brick over here, which we will say, okay, that was preserved, and whether that ends up being enough to do like a wall that you're looking at here or decorative touches, the architect's thought was, what if we can preserve enough brick? So remember, one of the things you got to do in an old building like that is to have two different staircases so that people on the top fourth floor can't escape. You have an elevator and two staircases. So one of the staircases is kind of hidden back in the back because it's right next to the elevator. It's not really for show. The other one is in the front, and if you ever look real close at the front of the rendering, what you see is that there's a main entrance here, and then there's a little door off to the side. Well, that little door off to the side is the fire escape, right? So that means when I open the main doors and enter the inside of the building, right off to my left-hand side is going to be a stairwell, and his thought was that he could do the entire stairwell from bottom to top in salvaged brick. And we'll see if that plays out. You got to actually demolish it first. But if the stairwell was kind of a nice architectural feature in preserved brick, then that may be as good as you can get with kind of using a historical touch with old building materials there. And there's there's some wood on the inside of it that they'll save some of the wood on the inside of it. We might repurpose it to other buildings downtown. We might use it as decorative touches on the interior of the building, but none of it will be used for a structural purpose. So, yeah.
No, I just thought
Yeah.
we could use whatever was salvageable
Right.
for the project.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can say that's exactly the mindset, and the reality of what we turn that into, we don't quite have that solved. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay, so what else here? We're doing a couple of our demolitions under this. Obviously, we budgeted a lot more than we've spent. We are looking right now at some of the land that was purchased in the town square. What parts of that are viable to demolish? What parts of it are going to be soon? What parts of it will take longer? So we're doing some evaluations on those right now. Again, there's a little drainage project we had in mind. There's a little bit of land acquisition, and then there's a debt service transfer, and that transfers over to the INS fund. That's actually supporting the town square project and the land acquisition that was done as part of that project. So, any questions about your financial report?
Any idea when the demo starts?
So we demoed one or two of the single-family houses after the families moved out of them, and we've got I've got bids on the old cleaner and the old South Side grocery. I've got a bid on the, I call it the Boss building, but it's the red metal building over there. Those are the next three that we'll do as a little chunk together. And I think that we're probably not more than 30 days or so from those. We're going to investigate highly what we can do with the old dog food silos. The silos over there used to store dog food, right? So those we're going to try to find out, do I have enough salvage value in those that should I be auctioning those, right? So instead of saying, oh, I'm going to spend money to demolish, do I actually auction it and then I get some money returning on those? I don't know that that's going to be a yes, but we want to be careful with our nickels. I want to at least vet whether or not somebody would pay me to take away those silos, and you never know. We'll at least give it a shot. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay.
Is
Yeah.
all of the land that you need to go forward with the downtown project done?
So I will walk you through it like this. I've got one residential house in the town square area where we ran into an airship problem, where maybe the purchase 40 years ago wasn't done right. And so there's a question about whether or not we can help the current owner prove his, I'm going to call it a common law ownership, right? He's paid taxes for 40 years. Who cares if he didn't buy it right 40 years ago, right? That sounds real common sense to say, but there's a lot of legal steps to settle that. So we're going through some legal steps on that, but we're very much eye to eye with that owner. There's one down there where I've got it's kind of half junkyard, half auto repair place. That's the one on the corner, kind of sort of close to the corner of Newton and Adelaide. That one has one or two steps to finish up before it closes, but we've reached agreement on that. There's full ownership of everything else that's in the formal town square, okay? When I say formal town square, that's going to be Newton, Broad, Francis, Adelaide, right? So that's the rectangle, if you will, that's the 8 city blocks. We have agreement with Union Pacific to close on all of their residual land holdings that are in that area which we will do maybe in July of this year. So that's a huge step. We're really thrilled with that. And that hadn't closed yet, so we have to finish that step of it. We have a contract in place with the Fatari family. So this is a sad story, right? And you may have followed this a little bit. So we were in process buying what some people call fast gas, and then the murder happened. And then, but all of that paperwork had gotten done. So the goal of that owner was, and the son is going to continue this goal, it was to relocate to a spot that they already owned, which is generally next to Circle K and the Silver Saloon, okay? And that piece of vacant land there is where they're moving their operation. They're not going to do gasoline anymore. They're just going to do liquor store. And they've got a battle plan for that. They've got a preliminary drawing of that. They were just on a track to say, hey, we're going to close down. They were actually going to close fairly soon. And then they were going to relocate, and we had given them a year to do all of that. Whether it's a year or maybe now it's going to be 18 months, it doesn't really matter. The point is, we actually own that, and we're just letting them finish and have time for their relocation. We own fully the Cowboys location. We have that scheduled for demo. We own fully the Cliffs Check Clashing and Queen Donut location. We have a demolition scheduled on that one. The paddock board, if you don't go into enough city meetings, any of you are welcome. The paddock board on Friday will talk a little bit about the designs for the parking lots at those two locations and kind of next steps to get those rehabbed into parking lots. We have a mural that we're trying to get done on the side of Houston Smith's building. That's the one that faces Cowboys. That was part of the demolition project there. And then, I'm giving you a long answer, so pardon me. The only one that I would say really hangs out there as unsettled is the corner of Rockwell and Moore, where we have made our preliminary offer on the corner of the vacant land that everybody thinks we own.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody thinks we own that corner because we put Christmas decorations on it, but for decades we've just never bought it. And so we've made our offer to that landowner for that piece of land. We're hopeful that that will work out. And I'll say that's very important because we can't build the quiet zone without it. And it has to do with the way that the South Alley has to get rerouted, because right now the South Alley dead ends into the Rockwell Street at a location that's a violation of the quiet zone standards. So we have to move South Alley to actually have its intersection up in the mid-block area there. So it'll be a little S-curve going through that vacant lot one day. And that's a really important part of the project. So that land acquisition, I would say, is the caboose, right? That's going to be the last thing that needs to happen down there. So that's a long answer, but all of that is in process. And gosh darn it, Chris Snap didn't throw a rock at me and tell me I forgot one. So here's the other one. Newton needs a little bit of a realignment. And so we're also in process buying land, and I can't give you an update on where this one stands right now. I don't know if you happen to know this one, Chris. They're all vacant land. It's all vacant. The vacant land that we're buying between Medora and Francis to do that little rejigger of Newton, is there anything to report on those?
The engineering is in process right now.
Okay.
Where we're at.
Okay. All right. So we've got a little bit more work to do on that piece of vacant land. And I think that wraps it up.
I appreciate the answer.
Okay.
It wasn't too long.
No, it's fine. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it. Okay. So I'll just pause there. Anything else on financial reports? Okay.
No, but I do
Yeah.
want to say, I appreciate the work that you and Dawn do and the rest of your staff to put all of this information together. It's, for me, it is hard reading, meaning I have to read it very slowly, but I appreciate the work that you and your staff do to do this, to bring it to my attention, and so I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you saying that. thank you. Okay, so Chairman, you want me to move to next couple items here?
Yes, please. 5.2, tax increment reinvestment zone number 1, I assume?
So I have short updates on everything in 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5. So if you don't mind, I'll just kind of rattle a few things off and as we go through that list. These are all just going to be little verbal updates, and then the meat of our conversation today is going to be 5.6, for which during part of 5.6 we'll need to do executive session, okay? So my quick updates for you is the next item you're going to see in the TIRZ number 1 in terms of, quote, new deal making is that we've been working with the Northeast Texas Regional Mobility Authority to build a small section of Sage Hill Parkway. So Terry Barber here knows Sage Hill Parkway as County Road 305. And you can't wait for me to stop calling it County Road 305 because people think it's yours if you call it County Road 305. But you and I know it doesn't belong to the county. Yep. And so, so that's what Sage Hill Parkway is. You can think of it as where American Way dead ends, right?
Okay.
You're down there by Film Alley,
Right.
and you get to this point and you say, well, wait a minute, the
Yes.
world ended here. I had a nice concrete American Way, and then I get to this little teeny tiny asphalt street. That's Sage Hill, and the sign actually says Sage Hill out over there. So anyway, the point of this story is that in order to do further development in the Crossroads development, and primarily to put something very nice where the current pile of dirt is, we've got to get Sage Hill Parkway built. Now, I could give you a half an hour story, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you this summer, in one of your meetings this summer, we're going to go into executive session, and I'm going to give you a long presentation about reworking some of our existing agreements out in that zone so that we can make sure that we get a very nice development where the pile of dirt is out there. So if you go out and take a look at it, you can kind of refresh what you're thinking of. On one side of the pond, you've got the existing apartment complex. You've got another apartment complex under construction right now. There's a road out there that's going to be called American Way as you kind of keep going along Crossroads. You got the 2 automobile dealerships back over there. The Planning and Zoning Board recently approved another apartment complex over there that you might describe as sorta, kinda behind the auto dealerships. And then we want to put something nice and special on top of where the pile of dirt is. We're going to smooth out the pile of dirt and replace the pile of dirt with a good development. That's going to take a lot of moving parts, and there's going to be votes necessary by TIRZ number 1 in order to enable that to happen. And because Sage Hill Parkway is the dividing line between TIRZ number 1 and TIRZ number 3, I got to brief you on TIRZ number 3 issues associated with Sage Hill Parkway as well. So that's my update for you on that. We think TIRZ number 1 will continue to kick off money we can use for downtown, and there's just always going to be the next development project, so that's what we'll work on next with TIRZ number 1. Okay, TIRZ number 2, the primary update is that we're working very hard on Arboretum Estates. I would have told you when we passed at City Council Resolution 2050 in December that we were going to go a little bit faster on Arboretum Estates. We've had basically January through June of we need to argue a little bit, and I think most of those arguments with our developer down there got us back to the same point we were in December, as is the way with a lot of these development agreements. They try to drag it in a direction, and we just drag it right on back. So there's your TIRZ number 2 update. TIRZ number 3 is Eastland Business Park. That's the one with no residential in it, that is entirely business park. And it's got a retail section on Spur 557. It's got a retail section on Interstate 20. And it is where we're building Los Lomas Boulevard through, right? So the 6-lane road that we want to build from 20 to Spur 557 that eventually gets up to 80. Eastland Business Park is the key to that. We continue to be in negotiations with that group. The Planning and Zoning Board did approve their zoning, and we're waiting for that developer to help us take the next step in those negotiations. TIRZ number 4 is North Spur, and that's the one way out west. And if you are sharp-eyed, you can tell that they did start some of their clearing and grading work over there. So Hines is the developer on that one. If you go out and you park at Pet Country Spa, then you can kind of take a look back over there, and you can see behind Pet Country Spa, they're moving dirt now. So they've gotten through the engineering department sufficiently to be able to say, okay, they know what leveling and moving of dirt they need to do. And they'll be trying to get their wastewater package plant fast-tracked. They're trying to get their water line built that goes from sort of Metro Drive along US 80 over to North Spur. And they've got a industrial prospect that is going to seek a building permit soon to do a spec warehouse over in that zone. And that will be, the spec warehouse will be, again, I speak in kind of sort of here. You notice that the old racetrack, their pole sign just came down, right? So where racetrack used to be, for years, there was a sign there. And as I describe it, the somewhat naughty gas price sign. Was anybody else notice this? They had the 42069, right? So that sign is down now. And right behind there is where the spec warehouse building will be. And we're glad that that's going to move forward, because North Spur, they didn't wait, right? And by the way, just as an observation about developers, they came to a point in our discussions where they said, you know what, the time we're wasting is more valuable than the negotiating point we're trying to win with the city. And so we took that as our win, and we moved along, we got stuff signed, and we moved on. And I think some of taking a hardline stance in those really helped us out. I think that was the right thing to do. So that's the rapid fire TIRZ 1 through 4 update. Everything I just said will come back to you in more detail as it is ripe to come back, okay? So we'll have more briefings on all of that as we go through this summer. And that brings me to 5.6, where, well, first off, any questions on anything not Arboretum? And we're going to talk a lot about Arboretum Estates in executive session. Is there anything on anybody's mind that I just covered going through 1 through 4 that's not Arboretum Estates?
No, but you
Yeah.
did say later on in the summer.
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to have a in-depth.
Right, so what I'm about to do in executive session on Arboretum Estates, I owe you that on North Spur, Eastland, and the TIRZ number 1 development project, yeah.
Right, here's
Yeah.
just a question.
Please.
I don't even know if it's in the budget. But it's just a cosmetic thing for me. Do you think we could borrow the police department's drone to take pictures of what you talk about?
I am sure that this nice engineering department over here has its own drone. Yeah, oh yeah, he's good, yeah, huh, so, yeah.
To show,
What are you interested in to kind of
When-
narrow this down?
when Mike does these presentations, they're very extensive, very detailed, and my mind tries to shift to different areas where he's going. I know where things are, but I'm not connecting the dots. And with all of the drone stuff that's going around, I was wondering if, to enhance his presentations, is there a possibility to add drone footage to his presentation to get a view, an aerial view of what he is talking about?
Yes, in some instances, we won't even need the drone. We have aerial maps right now that have all that displayed and laid out of how it's going to look, not only on the industrial side that he's talking about, but the residential side, so you can get the full big picture. And we have that already, so along with maps and pictures will tell you what's current, but the maps will tell you what's coming.
Okay, okay,
We can do a combination of both.
thank you.
Absolutely. Great question, yes. Okay, so if you don't mind, get us into 6.1, and we'll talk all about Arboretum Estates.
You want us to move into?
Yeah, if you don't mind, if you'll get us into executive session, then I can give this PowerPoint, which is all going to be executive session.
Okay, I will adjourn into executive session in accordance with Section 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the following. 6.1, Section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations.